Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're going to Finland, and we're going to be looking at some sources on long-term unemployment there. And specifically, we're focusing on folks over 50.
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic, and we've got some really fascinating sources, kind of a range of different perspectives. I'm excited to dive in and see what we can uncover.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got some government reports, think tank proposals, even some firsthand accounts from people dealing with this firsthand. So it should be pretty interesting.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I'm seeing right off the bat is this idea of an activation rate.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it's pretty low. I'm seeing numbers less than 10% when it comes to long-term unemployed people actually engaging with these support services.
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of these sources kind of touch on is that question of, why is that number so low?
Right.
What are those barriers that are preventing people from connecting with the help that's out there?
Yeah, because it does seem like there are programs, there are resources, but for some reason they're not being fully utilized.
Right, and there are a lot of different theories. I mean, some of the sources point to potential health challenges that people might be facing as they get older. Just the general discouragement that can come with a prolonged job search.
Right.
Maybe folks just aren't even aware of what's available to them.
Right, and it sounds like it's having a pretty big impact. I mean, one of the reports I read mentioned an increase in reliance on food banks.
Oh, wow.
And there's even this quote from a TE office worker who called the situation the most horrible I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, that really kind of drives home the point that, we're not just talking about numbers here.
Right.
This is affecting real people in very tangible ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing this trend of rising long-term unemployment, and it seems like those over 50 are particularly vulnerable.
Mm.
What makes this age group so susceptible to this issue?
Well, I think the sources kind of point to a few different factors working together.
Okay.
We talked about health challenges potentially becoming more common as people age.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the issue of, skills becoming outdated, especially in a job market that's constantly evolving.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then, of course, you can't ignore the unfortunate reality of age discrimination.
Right. It's almost like a perfect storm of challenges hitting all at once.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are some of the solutions that these sources are putting forward? How do we help people navigate this?
Well, there's no shortage of ideas out there, some more controversial than others.
Okay.
One that's generating a lot of buzz is this proposal to actually get rid of the bonus payment for participating in employment programs.
Really?
Yeah.
Seems kind of counterintuitive. Wouldn't that discourage people even more?
That's what a lot of folks are saying. The government's argument is that it's a necessary cost-saving measure, but the unemployment center is pushing back pretty hard on that, saying that it could lead to even more disengagement and social exclusion.
Wow, that's a pretty serious warning.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider.
So what are some other ideas that are out there?
Well, one source proposes something pretty radical,
Okay.
guaranteeing a job for anyone who's been unemployed for over a year.
Wow, that's a big idea.
Yeah, think about the potential impact of that.
I mean, it sounds good in theory, but could it actually work in practice? I mean, would municipalities even have the resources to make that happen?
That's a great question. And
Yeah.
what kind of jobs are we talking about here? Are these going to be meaningful opportunities for people to build careers? Or are we talking about, make work programs?
Right. It's not just about putting people in any job. It's about finding them work that they find fulfilling and that matches their skills.
Exactly. And speaking of matching skills, some sources are exploring the potential of using AI to help tackle long-term unemployment.
AI. That's interesting. Tell me more about that.
So imagine a system that can, analyze your skills, your experiences, even things that you might not necessarily think to highlight on a traditional resume.
Okay.
And then match you with, unexpected career paths that you might never have even considered.
Wow. So it's like AI helping you discover hidden talents or break free from those limiting career paths.
Exactly. And it's a really fascinating area of development. But of course, there are a lot of questions about fairness and bias that need to be addressed as this technology evolves.
Sure, of course, a lot of potential, but also some important things to consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about more traditional solutions like education and training programs? What role do those play?
Well, a lot of the sources really emphasize this idea of lifelong learning, especially as the job market is changing so rapidly. retraining programs that are specifically tailored to older workers could be a really valuable way to help them acquire new skills and stay competitive.
Like, for example, digital skills are becoming so essential in almost every field these days. Programs that focus on those could be incredibly helpful for older workers.
Yeah, and beyond the practical skills, it's important to remember the social and emotional impact of long-term unemployment.
Right, those feelings of isolation and diminished self-worth that we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Community organizations can play a huge role in combating that.
How so?
Well, they offer a sense of belonging, a place to connect with others who understand what you're going through, and, access to resources and support networks.
So it's about taking a holistic approach, supporting people not just in finding jobs, but in maintaining their well-being throughout the process.
Precisely. Now let's turn our attention to another crucial aspect: financial assistance for those experiencing long-term unemployment.
Yeah, I imagine this is a pretty complex area with a lot of different viewpoints.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of discussion about the partial unemployment benefit, and especially how it applies to those living with their parents. The Unemployment Center is particularly concerned about proposed reductions to this benefit.
Why is that? What's the thinking behind reducing it?
Well, the government says it's about simplifying the system and encouraging people to, move towards financial independence.
Yeah.
But critics argue that it could actually make it harder for people to become independent.
How so?
Well, imagine you're an adult living with your parents, not because you want to, but because you have to.
Okay.
And then your financial support is reduced.
Right.
That could make it even harder to, save money, move out, pursue your own life goals.
Yeah, that seems pretty counterproductive.
It's a tricky situation for sure. A lot of different factors to consider.
Yeah, it sounds like it seems like there are a lot of different perspectives and potential consequences to think about here.
Absolutely. And this brings us to, the role of different stakeholders in addressing this issue.
Yeah.
Who needs to be involved in finding solutions?
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to take a pretty collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Municipalities, employers, educational institutions, even individuals themselves all have a part to play.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
Municipalities are kind of on the front lines, providing those local services, understanding the specific needs of their communities. Employers need to be open to hiring and training older workers.
Right.
And individuals, they need to embrace lifelong learning and be proactive about seeking opportunities for growth.
So everyone has a role to play in tackling this issue.
Absolutely. It's a shared responsibility.
It seems like a lot of what we've been talking about is, helping people who are already struggling with long-term unemployment. What about preventing people from becoming long-term unemployed in the first place?
That's a great point. And actually, several of these sources talk about the importance of early intervention.
Okay.
For example, Työllisyyden, ratkaisemista, and an ilikaikea.pdf suggest that career counseling in schools could be really key.
So like giving students a better understanding of their career options and helping them develop the skills they need before they even enter the workforce.
Exactly. It's about preparing young people for a job market that's constantly evolving. The report also talks about promoting entrepreneurship.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe someone doesn't have to find a job. Maybe they can create one.
I like that. That's a great perspective.
Yeah.
So that's about prevention. But what about those who are already dealing with long-term unemployment? How do we best support them?
Well, one thing that comes up again and again is this idea of personalization.
Okay.
For example, strategioita 50 pitkäaikaistyöttömien, järjestöjen, parantamiseksi .pdf suggests assigning career coaches to work one-on-one with individuals.
Yeah, having someone who really understands your situation and can kind of guide you through the process could be really helpful.
It's about moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
Recognizing that everyone's path back to employment is going to be unique.
And this is where AI could potentially come in.
Yeah, we talked earlier about AI and some of the concerns surrounding it.
Right. Are there ways that it could be used to actually improve that personalized support?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Imagine a system that can analyze, tons of data, job opening skills that are in demand your own career history.
Okay.
And then use that to give you super targeted recommendations.
Okay.
Connecting you with opportunities that you might never have found on your own.
So using AI as a tool to enhance human support, not replace it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Finding that balance is going to be crucial.
So we've talked about personalized support, AI's potential role. But a lot of the responsibility also falls on employers.
Right.
What can they do to support older workers?
Well, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think it's worth diving a little deeper.
Yeah, absolutely.
What concrete steps can employers take to create a more inclusive environment? A lot of the sources point to the importance of fighting ageism head-on.
Okay.
For example, unconscious bias, training for hiring managers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we all have biases sometimes. We don't even realize how they're influencing our decisions.
Right.
So training can help address that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mentorship programs are another great option.
Yeah.
Pairing experienced workers with younger colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone benefits from that exchange of knowledge.
Yeah, it creates a more connected and supportive workplace.
And it shows those older workers that their skills and experience are valued.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've got, personalized support, AI's potential role, employer responsibility. Are there any other sort of innovative ideas out there that these sources are highlighting?
There's one that I thought was particularly interesting. It's called reverse mentoring.
Reverse mentoring. I've never heard of that. What is that?
So instead of the traditional model where, senior employees are mentoring younger ones, it flips the script. Younger employees mentor their older colleagues.
Oh, wow. So it's recognizing that younger generations often have, different strengths, especially when it comes to things like technology.
Exactly. It breaks down those traditional hierarchies and encourages everyone to learn from each other.
I like that. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah. But, we can't just focus on individual solutions. Government policies play a huge role here, too.
Right. What kind of policy changes could create a more supportive environment for long-term unemployed individuals, especially those over 50?
Well, reforming the unemployment benefit system is a big one.
Okay.
We talked earlier about the partial unemployment benefit and some of the controversy surrounding it.
Right, especially those proposed reductions for people living with their parents.
Exactly. That's a major concern. Some experts are suggesting alternatives like a basic income pilot program specifically for the long-term unemployed.
So providing a kind of safety net while people are, retraining or exploring new career paths.
Exactly. It could offer more flexibility and encourage people to take control of their futures.
It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, and remember that idea we discussed earlier about municipalities guaranteeing jobs?
Yeah, that was a pretty radical proposal.
It was, but let's think about, some of the pros and cons. Yeah. On the positive side, a guaranteed job could significantly reduce long-term unemployment and, provide a sense of purpose and belonging.
That could be huge for someone's well-being, not just their financial situation.
Exactly. But of course, there are challenges too.
What are some of those?
Well, municipalities would need the resources to make this work.
Right.
And we need to make sure that these jobs are actually meaningful.
Yeah, not just busy work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about finding that balance between providing support and ensuring the long-term sustainability of these programs.
Right. So it's not a simple solution.
Not at all. Yeah. But it's definitely worth considering.
Okay, so beyond direct job creation, what else can the government do?
Well, they could invest more in education and training programs specifically tailored to older workers.
Similar to the upskilling programs we talked about earlier, but with more government support to make them accessible to everyone.
Exactly. Breaking down those financial barriers is going to be crucial.
Makes sense. And of course, there's the issue of age discrimination. What can the government do to combat that at a more systemic level?
Well, strengthening anti-discrimination laws and ensuring that they're actually enforced is a good start.
Okay.
Public awareness campaigns can also help challenge those negative stereotypes and highlight the value that older workers bring to the table.
So it's about changing hearts and minds as well as creating policies that, incentivize employers to hire and retain older workers.
Exactly. Some sources suggest things like tax breaks for companies that hire older workers.
Oh, interesting.
Or subsidies for specialized training programs.
Okay.
Others propose things like senior internships.
Senior internships.
Yeah, to help older individuals gain experience in new fields.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
So it's really a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Encouraging positive action while discouraging discrimination.
And it's important to remember that this isn't just about economic indicators.
Right.
This is about creating a society that values everyone's contributions regardless of age. We've covered a lot of ground here, from personal support to AI to policy changes. What would you say is the main takeaway for our listener?
I think the biggest takeaway is that addressing long-term unemployment, especially for those over 50, demands a holistic and collaborative effort.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about finding one single solution.
Right.
It's about weaving together different approaches and working together to create a system that truly supports people.
It's about investing in people and recognizing their potential no matter their age or circumstance.
Exactly. Building a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
I love that. Well, we're going to take a quick break to gather our thoughts, and then we'll be back to wrap up this deep dive into long-term unemployment in Finland. Welcome back to our deep dive. It's been quite a conversation. So far, we've talked about the challenges, those statistics, all kinds of potential solutions. But I think it's important to circle back to something we touched on earlier, that human impact of this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to get lost in those numbers and the policy discussions. But we can't forget that real people are at the heart of this issue.
Yeah, going through these sources, I was struck by the personal stories and the emotional toll that long-term unemployment can take. I mean, one quote that really stuck with me was from that TE office worker who called the situation the most horrible they'd ever seen.
It's a stark reminder that we're not just talking about, statistics. We're talking about people's lives, their livelihoods, their sense of purpose. And long-term unemployment can lead to those feelings of isolation, hopelessness, even shame.
And it's not just the individual who's affected, right? It ripples out to families, communities, society as a whole.
Exactly. It's interconnected. That's why it's so important to address not just the economic side of unemployment, but also the social and emotional well-being of those individuals.
A lot of the sources highlighted the role of community organizations in providing that support.
Absolutely. Lieutenant Texi offered some great examples. These organizations offer a sense of belonging, a place to connect with others who understand what you're going through.
Right.
And, access to resources and support networks.
So it's like a lifeline for people who might otherwise feel lost and alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And beyond just providing support, I think it's important to also recognize the strengths and contributions of older individuals.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We've talked a lot about the challenges, but several of these sources also emphasize the value that older workers bring to the table. Their experience, their work ethic, their problem-solving skills.
It's about shifting that narrative from one of decline to one of opportunity.
Right.
Instead of seeing an aging population as a burden, we need to recognize the potential it holds.
It's about creating a society that values diversity in all its forms, including age diversity.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And fostering a culture of inclusivity where everyone feels respected, valued, and supported.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder. We've talked about how AI could be a really powerful tool in addressing this issue, but it also raises some ethical concerns. So do you think ultimately AI-driven job matching could be a force for good in this area? Or are there risks that we need to be wary of?
That's a great question. And I don't think there's an easy answer. Like any powerful technology, AI has the potential for both positive and negative impact. It really comes down to us to ensure that it's developed and used responsibly with human well-being as that guiding principle.
It's a reminder that technology should serve humanity, not the other way around.
Exactly. And it's a conversation that we need to keep having as AI becomes increasingly integrated into our lives and our work.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the complex world of long-term unemployment in Finland. I hope you've learned some valuable insights and maybe even come away with a renewed sense of hope and possibility.
It's been a pleasure exploring these sources with you. And remember, the journey doesn't end here. Keep learning, keep asking those questions, and keep advocating for a future where everyone has the opportunity to contribute and thrive.
That's it for today's deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.